I only have scraps of this. Some slightly bits of memories that started to emerge, mainly from 1 year or so ago. It's about a feminine being, which I think at some point something happened, and she was captured by some sort of force. So let's say there is this realm or reality or way of being in which there was this feminine being, which she has a certain type of property. Like, I think she is what we would call here an eternal being, and she has a certain extremely valuable power, or something is about her, or a property that she owns, or it's something that she has, which for some type of force out there, this property or this value or this thing that this feminine being had was extremely precious and extremely valuable. Either, I don't know what type of power, it's something related to something precious, a power that she owns, or she has like a sort of treasure or an asset of sorts, but it's like something that pertains to the interior of herself, or if not the interior of herself, something pertaining to her, or something which is part of her or is in her custody, or something like this. And I think that this feminine being was captured for this power. And what happened is that she chose death rather than giving away this power. So she was captured by this, what appears like a really dark force of sorts. What we could describe like really, I don't know, like, it's just to call this force psychopathic, it's just a small word. This force that captured this feminine being has zero emotions, is just completely purpose driven, and it wanted this power or this thing that this feminine being had. It thought that it can, by entering into the possession of this power that this feminine being had, that it could use that power for some purposes that this dark force was having. So somehow it managed to capture this feminine being, and I don't know, maybe this is not exactly so, but I think this feminine being was a sort of royalty like part of some sort of royalty of sorts. She was either a princess or a queen, or the head of a certain kingdom, or she was some type of, I think, a royal being of sorts out there, an eternal royal being of sorts. And through some form or another, this dark force managed to take hold of this feminine being with the idea of taking hold, or somehow managing to use her power, or this power that she had, or this treasure, or this asset, or whatever that is, that it is either in her possession or it belongs to her as part of her somehow. I think it's more something that belongs to her, or it's in her possession of some sort, in some way. So this dark force took hold of this feminine being, and I think at first what happened is like she was given an ultimatum of sorts, like she would either give freely that power to the dark force, or she would be tortured and used all sorts of things on her to take that power away from her in a brutal way. And she chose the second option. She chose to go through death or to torture or through whatever it would have to go through, instead of giving that power to this dark force. And I think this is where this feminine being has been subjected in one of the things she has been subjected to is this. She was put in some sort of like coma, or yeah, so she's in a sort of coma right now. She's like kind of dead right now, but she chose this type of death instead of giving that power away. She chose death over giving that power away. And she knew that this dark force would never be able to truly get to that asset or that power, independent of anything that they could do to her in her dream. And they tried to extract the information in her dream. They tried to get to her in her dream, because as I said, I think she was put into a sort of coma, like a perpetual state of coma, and in this state of coma she was induced with some form of trance-like sleep, trance-like dream, and then she was fed with all sorts of dream-like scenarios in which this created by this dark force. And she was like subjected to these dreams constantly inflicted in her sleep, in her sleeping consciousness somehow. But this type of dreams, they were like freaking torture. So she was subjected to all sorts of scenarios, to all sorts of things, just to try to make her give off the information of how to access that power. So this dark force played out a lot of scenarios upon her mind in her dreams, either coming to her like really this dark, violent, torturing, brutal, killing, raping force, making her try to be afraid of them in her dreams, trying to, give them the information by force, or either they try to trick her by kindness, they try to befriend her in her dreams, trying to, simulate that it's her family or her lover or her friends or her, something she loved, something she liked. So this dark force played all sorts of scenarios, both evil scenarios and good scenarios upon her mind, trying both ways, both the kind way and the brutal way, to get out this information from her. But I think what she knew is that if they make her fall asleep, if they put her in a death state, somehow, I don't know how, but she knew that they will never get to that, to get that thing from her, because it's like that was a protection in a way. Or maybe now I see it, I think, oh my god, I think if I'm seeing this correctly, I think they didn't put her into a death state. I think somehow she put herself into a death state. I think that maybe she was captured by them, by the dark force, and instead of giving them the information, she killed herself in a way. She put herself into a state of death. And I definitely see her connected with some devices, like she's either in her dream, either this might be a version of one of her dreams, or I don't know where this is, but I see her connected to like devices. She's being subjected to all sorts of devices by this dark force. She's in a coma, but they have like entered into her mind, trying to infiltrate her consciousness, her dreams. And this is how they inflicted her with all these scenarios, extracting dreams, like dreams created as extractors of trying to infiltrate her consciousness with these extracting dreams that would act like extractors trying to get this information out of her. So she put herself to sleep, I think. It was not necessarily them. I think this was her escape. She put herself to sleep. She put herself in a death state, and this is how she managed to escape them in a way. Because somehow she knew that in that death state, they could never truly be able to take that information from her. Somehow, I think if I'm seeing this correctly, she knew that they would get lost in the dream world. The dark force, would get lost in her dream. So she had a sort of ability, like her mind, she knew that they would get lost in her mind, if that makes sense. Her mind was like a labyrinth if she wanted. Or she could morph her mind and she could create anything with her mind. And if she would be able to capture them in her mind, she knew that she could create labyrinths, entire universes of labyrinths in her mind, and they could never figure the way out. And somehow, I think if I'm seeing this correctly, it's like this is how the dark force was eventually entrapped in her mind. And she would not allow them to escape. And this is how they got trapped, I think. They went in her mind to get that information from her, and she trapped them inside her mind. Somehow. And I think she would only let them go if they would renounce the quest for the information. That's only when she would let them go. Until then, I think they are somehow trapped within her mind, and somehow she's torturing them in her mind as well, because they are lost somehow in their own craving, they crave to find and to keep and to take from her that power, that secret, that information, whatever that is. And because they are so obsessed with their quest cannot make them let go of her mind, of where they find themselves, and they continue to search and search and search in her mind. But her mind, what they do not know is that she is in complete power of her mind, and she can create endless words. And if they completely, let's say, search the inside out of a certain world, turn that world perhaps into a desert, trying to find what they were looking for, didn't found it, and then they would move to a next world. But what they do not realize is that she is in complete power of her mind, and she can create these endless words for them, and they would search endlessly for that information, but it's never to be found. She's never going to give them that information. And what the thing is here is that they have to apologize in a way. They have to backtrack, understand their mistake, apologize, and they would be freed. In a way, they would be released, liberated from her mind. Because right now she trapped them in her mind somehow, I think. They cannot escape. This, like, it was this dark force, it was like a virus. It tried to get a hold of her, to possess her, to torture her. And she put herself into a death state and trapped them in her mind. And now they cannot escape because they are consumed by their own, what's the word? It's when you have extreme, craving for something. It's a word. It's an unhealthy craving combined with vanity somehow. It's like they cannot let go of their craving for this power. That they are continuing to search and search and search. And this is how they get more and more lost within her mind. And they cannot escape nor find that power. And they are driven somehow insane by this never-ending quest. But at the same time, she's suffering as well because now she's dead. She's dead. But she's choosing this death state rather than give them that power. So she's in a constant state of torture as well. And I can feel how she's feeling pity for them. She wants them to recover. She really feels for them. She has zero grudge or zero, let's say, hatred on them. And on the contrary, she feels like she wants them to see their mistake. She wants them to see their wrongness and to, let's say, repent. And straighten themselves up. Like, she wants them to see the truth of all life, to see what they try to do against her, and against her, and thus against all of life. She wants them to see their mistakes because she knows that if they would be able to see how they injured life, how they stood against life, and thus how they stood against their very heart, their very core self, which they might not have been aware of, how by injuring her they injured themselves, but they weren't perhaps aware that the power that they were looking in her, they could have had access through themselves if they would have managed to purify themselves in a way, or seek life, seek the heart of true life, which might have been available to them as well if they would have made a certain type of sacrifice. Instead of stealing that power from her, they could have accessed that power naturally if they would have communed with life as well. So she, in a way, goes through this self-sacrifice, keeping herself dead, in order for them to have a way to see the heart of true life, to meet at some point through this experience life itself and recognize this truth of all life, come face to face with it and recognize it and have that realization. So it's such a conundrum in a way of an experience because she is suffering, she goes through this self-sacrifice in a way in order for them to see the truth of all life, for them, paradoxically, now that I'm seeing it, to have access to that power that they were looking for in her, but for them to have access to that power through themselves. So somehow through her sacrifice and them being trapped within her and going through all this madness because they are going mad trying to search for that never-ending quest, never-ending power, that greed, that was the word that I was seeking for, that they have so much greed, they have so much like, oh, we want that, where is that, oh, they are greedily, if that's a word, searching and searching and searching for that power with greed and we want that, where is that, we have to get our hands on it, it has to be ours, So they are lost in her mind with all this greed of finding that treasure that power. And this is what keeps them trapped and lost. It's their own greed. It's their own segregation from true life in a way, which made them initially try to steal true life or access true life by taking a seize of her. It was their own initial mistake. Trying to find true life by stealing it from somebody else instead of finding that true life through themselves. And now, by keeping them trapped within her, through this immense torture that she is going through, because she is going through undescribable torture. They are torturing her within her day by day, moment by moment. She's going through undescribable torture. What this dark force is doing to her inside of her. How they are contorting, distorting, raping, torturing her essence, her substance. I don't know how to describe it. Day and night. But she's allowing to go through this rather than give up that power, as I said. And eventually, the thing is that through all this sacrifice that she's doing, she knows that somehow, I don't know how, but this sacrifice that she's doing right now is creating the chance for them at some point to meet true life, to see it for themselves, to meet the heart of true life within her. So by her dying in this way and allowing her death to occur in this way and dying, and she died in just in incomprehensible number of ways. She died all the deaths that every living form ever died in. All of the deaths that humanity have ever experienced through torture, through rape, through murder, through accidents, all the deaths that all animals have ever experienced, all the deaths that all plants or anything has ever experienced, all the suffering that was ever experienced by any type of living form in this world, she was experiencing it all. She died in all those ways. She suffered in all those ways. She was tortured in all the torturing that all of humanity has ever done to humanity or to animals or to anything. She was tortured every time. She was there in whenever somebody had, a finger cut out of it, or a torturing of, their limbs or their nose or whatever those torturing, they were doing torture devices in, I think, in the Middle Ages or something. And people have been torturing other people, people have been torturing animals. She lived all of that, lively, all those tortures. Uncountable forms, and who knows how many other worlds were created of who knows how many type of tortures that we don't even know about. She lived all of this, and it was an incomprehensible, like really incomprehensible act of sacrifice, because she knew that it is only through this act of pure, like the uttermost, it's indescribable, like the purest form of sacrifice you could ever do, to die in all these ways, to go through all this suffering and torturing, just for them to eventually see her, in a way, in her true self, see the purity, see the heart. Paradoxically, she did, and she does give them a chance that through all this thing that she put herself through for them, in a way, that they get to meet eventually the heart of all life. And paradoxically, they are given a chance at that power, but they are given a chance to gain that power in a natural way, to gain them through their own self. Not by stealing it from somebody else, but by recognizing them by recognizing that power somehow in themselves. But that recognition can only be done if you meet the heart of all life. And she through everything that she was doing and she did, she gave them the chance to meet the heart of all life. And she allowed them to torture her in all this way, to kill her, to do all of these things to her, so that eventually they see themselves through all these things that they put her through. Eventually they are to have this realization of everything that they've done. And in that moment, it's gonna crumble them to their knees when they will truly realize what they've done and what has happened through them and what they've allowed to happen through them. And when they crumble to their knees, seeing what they've done, that's when they are going to see the heart of all life. Because in that moment, when the heart of all life is going to reveal themselves to them, they are going to have the uttermost realization of what that heart truly is. But I think it's paradoxically only when almost the last strain of true life is almost going to extinguish and die, and almost like the heart of all life is going to almost fully die. So we are going perhaps to go through the uttermost type of death, the heart almost extinguishing itself and being killed, almost entirely. And as the heart of all life almost dies entirely, I think that's when, at that moment of complete death, complete shutting off of all life, complete, true darkness setting in upon everything. I think it's only paradoxically at that last moment that they might truly see, they might truly understand, when the heart of all life is going to take its last breaths, that they might truly have a chance at seeing what that heart truly is. So in its death, paradoxically, while this heart of life might go through its actual death, this dark demonic force might actually see the heart of all life, might actually begin to realize what that truly means. And I think that's when they are going to crumble in their knees and have the realization that they might, like, of an existence, I think they are completely unprepared for what this truly means. When the heart of all life is going to die, I think they are unprepared for what this truly means.